Picture this. You're in charge of pricing a massive, multi-million-dollar product launch. If you set that price too high, boom, nobody buys it. But if you set it too low, you're leaving literal millions on the table. It honestly feels like a giant gamble, right?
But here's the secret. They aren't just guessing. They're using calculus. More specifically, they use polynomials to strategically pinpoint that exact perfect price and absolutely maximize their profits. Today, we're going to dive right into this because the math behind these decisions is incredibly powerful. And it all starts with just a few basic building blocks.
In this explainer, we'll quickly cover predicting the real world, linear functions and slope, polynomials and their end behavior, that maximizing revenue model I just mentioned, and finally, algebraic and root functions. By the end of this, you're going to know exactly how to apply these math models to real-life situations.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, Predicting the Real World. This is all about the true power of mathematical models.
Moving right along to Section 2, Linear Functions and Slope. Let's build those basics.
So the absolute easiest type of math model we have is the linear function. As you might guess, it always graphs as a perfectly straight line. And the most defining feature of that line? Its slope. Simply put, slope is just the change in our vertical axis, y, for every single unit of change in our horizontal axis, x. So the key thing to remember here is that slope measures two things at the exact same time. Just how steep the line is and which direction it's heading.
And this is a great way to visualize how that direction actually works. If we've got a positive slope, the linear function is increasing. That means the line points upward as you move from left to right. Simple, right? On the flip side, if the slope is negative, the function is decreasing, pointing downward from left to right. And hey, if it happens to be perfectly flat, well, your slope is just 0. Okay, let's look at the actual step-by-step formula to calculate this. It's really straightforward. Step 1, you pick literally any 2 points on your line. Step 2, you find the change in y by subtracting the first y value from the second. And step 3, you just divide that by the change in x. Because our line is perfectly straight, your result is always going to be the same, totally regardless of which 2 points you pick to start with. Let's ground this with a real-life example. Say Jessica goes out for a morning run. She leaves her house at 5:50 a.m., runs exactly 9 miles at a nice constant pace, and gets back at 7:08 a.m. Now we want to figure out the slope of her distance over time. At 0 minutes, she's run 0 miles, right? That's our first point. At 78 minutes, which is the total length of her run, she's covered 9 miles. There's our second point. So our change in y is 9 miles, and our change in x is 78 minutes. If we divide 9 by 78, we get roughly 0.115. But wait, hold on a second. What does that number actually mean in the real world? This is crucial. That 0.115 isn't just some random abstract slope floating on a graph. It actually represents her average velocity in miles per minute. She ran exactly 0.115 miles every single minute. Pretty cool, right?
All right, on to Section 3, Polynomials and End Behavior. Time to add some curves to our lines. Because let's face it, the real world rarely moves in a perfectly straight line. By throwing some exponents onto our variables, we create polynomials, and that brings curves into the mix. Now, when you study these curves, you are definitely going to hear the phrase end behavior. And you might be wondering, why on earth do we care about what a graph does way out at infinity? While knowing what happens as our inputs get massively huge lets us easily sketch the outer edges of the graph without having to sit there and calculate 1,000 individual points. The term with the highest power in your polynomial basically acts like a steering wheel. It dictates exactly where that graph is ultimately heading.
Let's see how this actually looks using a quadratic function, which always gives us a nice U-shaped curve called a parabola. Check out how just changing a plus to a minus changes the whole game. If your leading coefficient is positive, the parabola opens upward, soaring off toward positive infinity. But if you just flip that leading coefficient to a negative number, boom, the whole parabola flips upside down, opening downward and diving straight toward negative infinity.
Which brings us to Section 4, the maximizing revenue model. Let's find that perfect price.
Okay, remember that massive company from the start of our explainer? The one trying to find the ultimate price point? Well, first they test out some different prices and track the sales. Look at these numbers. When they price it at $6, they sell 19.4 thousand units. But when they jack the price up to $12, sales drop to 13.8 thousand units. This right here creates a linear relationship with a negative slope. Basically, as the price goes up, the units sold drop. The data gives them a simple linear function for units sold, negative 1.04 times the price, plus 26.
But here's the catch. The company doesn't actually care about just the units sold. They care about the money. They want to maximize revenue. And revenue is just the price of the item multiplied by the number of units sold. When we multiply the price, P, by that linear sales formula we just found, we suddenly get a quadratic function, negative 1.04p squared plus 26p. And hey, remember what we said about negative leading coefficients? That means our revenue model is a parabola that opens downward. And a downward-facing parabola has one single distinct peak at the very top, a mathematical maximum.
By pinpointing the exact vertex of that parabola, the company hits the jackpot. Their peak revenue is a very solid $162,500, and they hit this number when the price is set to exactly $12.50. If they get greedy and charge $13, they make less money. If they play it safe and charge $12, they also make less. Through the power of calculus and polynomial end behavior, they've literally calculated the absolute optimal price point to make the most money possible. How wild is that?
Moving to Section 5, Algebraic and Root Functions, Setting the Boundaries.
Now, as we start working with algebraic functions like square roots, we have to establish some really strict mathematical boundaries. Okay, wait, listen up because this is super important. If you take away anything from this explainer today, let it be these two golden rules of domains. Breaking these is the absolute most common mistake I see. Rule number 1, you can never, ever divide by 0. Just don't do it. And rule number 2, you cannot take the square root of a negative number because that won't give you a real number back. These rules are the law when it comes to deciding what x inputs are actually allowed in your function.
But there is a pretty fascinating exception when we start looking at root functions. While even roots, like your standard square root, are totally locked down to positive numbers and 0, odd roots get to play by a completely different set of rules. If you're dealing with a cube root, your domain suddenly blows wide open. It includes all real numbers, from negative infinity all the way to positive infinity. Why? Because a negative number times a negative number times a negative number is still negative. So those odd functions essentially get a free pass to bypass that negative square root rule entirely.
And finally, Section 6, Summary and Final Thoughts. Let's wrap up these basic building blocks.
So let's recap what we've covered today. First, linear functions are totally defined by their slope, which tells us exactly how steep a line is and which way it's going. Second, by tossing in higher powers, we create curving polynomials, and their overall shape and end behavior are completely controlled by their leading coefficient. Third, we got to see firsthand how these very same functions act as powerful models to solve massive real-world problems, like maximizing corporate revenue. And lastly, when you're working with algebraic and root functions, you absolutely must respect the strict boundaries of their domains.
All right, so you now know how to build basic mathematical models of the world around us. But what happens when reality starts to break down? What actually happens when we take these nice smooth curves and push them infinitely close to the absolute edge of mathematical existence? Well, my friends, that is where the true mind-bending magic of calculus really begins. Next time, we're going to push these functions to their limits, literally. I'll see you in our upcoming explainer on limits.